Mother from Hearts and Minds again. Welcome to Being Whole, Being Me series. Whoa, 55. And we have someone really interesting, exciting, a beautiful woman whom I've met, whom I've admired from far, only from social media, only met her once, but I would say, I dare say she stole my heart. I'm probably envious about her because, if you see the video about her, she seemed to live the life that I had envisioned. And because I didn't get to do all the things that she's doing, I decided to bring her up to interview her so that maybe for the either the rest of my life or in my next life I can do some things that she's doing. But as I bring the beautiful Vani Sri on screen, I'm going to say a special hello to John Peter Ganesan. Welcome back to my life. We've missed you, so we're doing well. And yes, good morning from India. And I'm going to say good morning to good morning, good afternoon, Gerald. Thank you very much for always supporting me and being this wonderful friend. And Manesh, good afternoon. And let's bring Vani Sri quickly up.
Hello.
Hi. So now you know why I invited you, because I'm envious of you.
No, that's a bit a lot, a lot of. I do not know what to say, but
Thank
I do not
you.
know what is there to be envious. I do not know what is there to be envious. Because when I saw your what you just put up there just now, all of those was speakers in your interview session.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a big wow. So I'm going to do a commitment right now. I'm going to start listening to your sessions. But
Oh.
if I'm going to do anything at that point of time, I think I just need to put the earphone up onto my ears and listen to that.
Oh my
So
God.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. And but
Thank you.
like what I always tell you, Vani, my hope for you, or rather my desire for you, is really to see you more expressing yourself a little bit more on social media, because
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love not just your physical voice, but the kind of things that you have been sharing when you do share, right? I've
Okay.
said this many times to you privately, but maybe publicly say I admire you. And so thank you for saying yes, because I know you're one of those, actually, most people who come to my show are low profile, don't want to come up, don't want to show up. So thank you for saying yes. And I think I first met you at Masaga.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and that's the only time I've met you, right? And you left an impression for sure. After which, whenever I see your social media posts, and we've had that,
Hope it was a good impression.
it was not a good impression. It was an admirable impression, not just
Oh, okay.
right, because I remember that very short exchange. We had exchanges about your two beautiful children. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was watching, and the good thing is this, right? I didn't associate you to your other half because I had no indication. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's not because I know your husband, sort of a thing. It's like I met you as a person, and it was just so wonderful to see you and your two amazing children. And that time, I think that was 3 years ago. They were just teenagers, and they carried themselves so well in the workshops. And then I found out, my goodness, they are homeschooled. And you know what?
Yeah.
They are homeschooled by their beautiful mother. And so today, I think, in conjunction of Mother's Day, Teachers Day, May 1st,
Right.
wishing you Mother's Day every day, because I think if we mothers think, as a mother, I think it's rough. I can't imagine you taking on, if not two roles, but more roles, a teacher and a mother, or a mother and a teacher. And I don't know how you did it, because I think what is really interesting is that we all aspire as parents to want to give our best. Some of
Yeah.
us do,
That's
some of us feel we don't, but that's not the point. But I think today, when we
right.
look
Mhm.
at an alternative education, a lot of us have alternatives. But you started this like years ago, where there was no precedent, number one. Number two, I'm sure you would have had a lot of pushback. So it's very
Mhm.
courageous, I think, to be able to do that, because both your kids I believe one is in college, right? Both are in
Yes,
college, right?
one
So they're
got it.
one is in college. So they're towards the end of the cycle of what we call a normal education system in this part of the world, right? So that's why we want to get every nugget out of you. So tell us your story. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about you because you are very private. I know you're a great dancer. You're a Sangeetam teacher, right? An amazing wife because your husband is always boasting about the way you cook. So I need to find out what you can't do, but tell us about it.
Okay. All right. First of all, okay, this topic is about homeschooling. Tell that we did not homeschool our kids. We educate them at home. So the difference, if you were to ask me, the difference, it will be the fact that we bring the school into the house.
Vani,
And
sorry, Vani, you're lagging a little bit. I
am I
couldn't
lagging
hear you.
now?
Hold on,
Okay.
yeah. Gerald, if you Gerald, help me. If you find Vani lagging, can you please let us know as well, please? Because I'm hearing you like okay, just
Yeah.
go through
Sure,
each of
sure,
the
no problem.
sentence.
Yeah, okay. So it was not homeschooling that we did. We
Okay.
educated them at home. The difference is that we did not bring the system of schooling into the house,
Mm,
right? So we did not bring the system of schooling into the house, although in the beginning we did get into the pressures around us. And okay, I'll come to that a bit later. But what I'm trying to say is what we do right now is we home educate the kids. But of course, generally, a lot, everyone seems to be calling that as homeschooling. So that is a big, big difference. There are some who do unschooling too. And how we came into this.
mm.
Okay, I have a background of working in the bank. Actually, I was working in the bank and close to about a decade, and then our child came along, the first one, and that's when I had the first when we had our first daughter, our daughter, um, Jega, my husband. Uh, well, I asked him, I want to be with her. Can I leave the job? I mean, it's a two things together, right? Because you're talking about income and all those things that comes with that. So he said, "Well, if it makes you happy, go ahead." You know. So that was number one. So when I took care of her, I was doing my side hustles too. I was doing my beauty and wellness consultancy before. Can you hear me, Mother? Yes. Yeah, okay. So I was doing beauty and wellness. I was also doing calling. I mean, that involved calling complete strangers, cold calls, and setting up appointments. So while the baby was there in the house with either my parents or my mom-in-law, I will go for my appointments and I will come back and things like that. So this was going on. And then when Jiga and Zygo started their business, I was also trying to just help out whatever I can, just for a short term. So this was happening, and when our daughter was about 4, I think that's when there was we were not pressured, because we were just like, okay, it's a beautiful world altogether that we have created. It's not only both of us; it's a child that has come into our life right now. And what happened was there was mounting pressure, not from anyone else, but our own moms. So they were like, not going to nursery. That
Mm.
child is going, the child is going. So when our daughter was 5 years old, that's when we thought, okay, let's just send her to the kindy. So we did not think about homeschooling at all. Okay, but the very fact that I was taking care of her at home, and I was just going out to have set some appointments and come back and things like that. You see, there was this natural tendency. I'm not sure whether you agree with this, but I think women have this natural um, connectedness towards nature. She was fully on mom's milk. So she was, for 2 years, and even my son, and I cooked, and I loved doing that. To see the growth, to see all of those little things that she was telling, that little first cooing that he was doing, all of that. And what happened was, this went on, and I told that, okay, since we've already come to the age, she has come to the age of 5, let's just send her to the kiddie. And they also said, okay, let's just try, see what happens. So we did not have any kind of, although we have heard about homeschooling, we did not think about that at all. So she went, and well, that's when some paradigm shifts happened.
Mm.
So what happened was, when she went to the kindergarten, uh, she will come back home sometimes very, she would have cried in the school, but when she comes back home, she won't cry. But we know. So when we send her to the school, I mean, this is something that's natural. I think every other child will go through this. But at the same time, what was happening was, there were days when she came back with stories like, our teacher said she'll cut our fingers if we don't do our homework. Says, okay, fine. He said, okay, okay. Oh, she did say that. But you try to just talk to a 5-year-old. You say, maybe she was just, or maybe this. We didn't know. We were still first time parents, right? We don't have a book to go through and how to deal with those things. And there were times when she comes back with a book that was, the exercise book is all erased when there were already written work. So
Mm.
she comes back home, everything is erased. And Jega once asked her, what happened? Why are you writing on the same page again? So teacher said, you can't do this in school. You have to go home and do. So these were the things. And we were like, okay, is there any other alternatives, Jega? And Jega was like, shall we just go and start to explore? So when we ventured out, we found a character building kind of class. It is a short 1 hour in a week or 2 hours a week. So I started taking her then, and by then my second one was born. He was already a toddler. So this was happening, and that's when, you see, when I was telling earlier that women have this natural tendency to be connected to nature more. What happened is, when we decided, okay, let's just try homeschooling. So there were people that we went and spoke to. They were pioneers. If you think that we are like, like, oh, we have been doing this for a long time, there were already a community of beautiful people here who were doing homeschooling under the radar. Under the radar. Because at that point of time, we did not have social media, we did not have all those things, right? We only probably kept in touch through emails. And what happened was, we spoke to some of these pioneers. I will mention their names later. So we spoke to them, and they said, "Well, you can if you want to homeschool." Um, so we said, "Okay, let's just try this." So Jega and I started to, uh, we started to attend more of these meetups of homeschoolers.
Mm.
uh, I think we attended about 2 or 3 of those homeschooling gathering there.
Mm.
Um, See, the challenge that I had was, when I left the job and when I started homeschooling, we say this will be a non-glamorous thing to do
Of
for
course.
a person, of course, yeah, because you will not be driving a flashy car. If you want to, you can, but you don't want to, and you will be, you'll be asked, oh, you don't earn money, those kind of things. Because, well, one of the reasons is, I think, from those days, when we did something with our hands. I think Vandana Shiva puts it very beautifully. If Dr. Vandana Shiva, she has, there's a very a wonderful video that has been going around some time back. She did say that, when people used to think that going to the war and killing was more of a important thing to do, or making money at the expense of other people's was good. So when I decided to do this, I knew that I did this decision with my heart, my heart, my mind, and everything in congruent. You see, and Jega was too. He was supportive of it. So when we did decide to homeschool, we also made a very clear decision. Both of us were not too happy, not too sad. We were just neutral, and we said, let's just explore this. you know so we what happened was, we saw that education, I mean, that was just an example that I gave you about how she came back, my daughter came back, and she said this, but what was actually really happening was, I'm sure you will agree too, there were a lot of emphasis on tests and assessments, as in like getting A's. You go for that because that's what is going to give you a bright future and things like that. But we were wondering, is that the only reason we educate? You know?
So, Mani, I'm gonna stop you here for a bit, right? Because I think so. What is really amazing? What I've picked up is you've helped us differentiate homeschool, educating from for educating from home. So I like the way you use the word education than to school. Okay,
Yep.
so school has a, I love the way you said, I'm not going to bring, if I'm going to take my kid out of the system, I'm not going to bring the system to the house. And
Yep.
there was a lot of clarity there when you spoke. You got me to think.
Mhm.
You also spoke about, what does it mean to educate. You're actually using not school, but you were very clear in terms of languaging. It's about educating, right?
Right.
At home. And then you also introduce us to the concept of unschooling, which I think we should explore, which is
Yep.
beautiful. Can you tell us this journey about, how your soul was, just taken away by your children, right? Because even though you were trying the side hustling, I say this, for me, my tombstone, I don't need anything as long as my children say, what, this is my mom, and I think she gave it her best shot. I will rest in peace. That's why I tell my children, as long as I've given my best shot, actually I'll rest in peace, right? So you're very anchored, you're very wholesome as to where your joy lies, right? And I saw that transition, which is really good. And but what I wanted to dig a little bit, right, is you gave that example of your daughter coming back and what the teacher said about her. Right? When we all can relate to the various things people say in the school system that we are averse to as parents. I think all, if not all, most of us will find that our children ask us very valid, logical questions that we can't answer. But what we do is that we think we don't have a choice and we will channel them back into the system. That's what most normal people do. So I'm trying to understand what is abnormal about you and Jiga, right? And I know you are a system together, which is fantastic, right? Now, what I want to understand is that when you heard all of this, whether your aversion to what the teacher said, all
Okay.
right, about falling into a system that didn't make sense, neither was it helping your child develop, right? Or the fact that you were questioning, is the assessment that is set is what determines my child's nature and intelligence, right? So you have all of this, right? But really, if I asked you, what were you and your husband, Chika, what were y'all averse to made you? Because I think it's a courageous act to do something differently, but there must be enough push for you to say, you know what, my children don't belong here. So what were you actually averse to? What did you think your child might become in the system that you decided, what, we're going to explore?
Well, and to be very honest, in the beginning, we were also afraid. We were also unsure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we went and met all these homeschoolers
Mm-hmm.
uh, who are already doing at that point of time. So I was telling you about the functions. So in fact, we even asked KV soon. I'll mention his name and Weiling, Chong Weiling. They are like pioneers, I would say, because we went and met them. In fact, Jega told KV, I'll buy you dinner. We just want to talk to you. So they obliged. Very beautiful people. So they obliged, and we spoke to them, and they told us, you see, what you want to do is going to be very, very personal decision that you're going to make. So it's whether you want to do it, but of course you know that there is going to be a commitment also,
Mm.
because this is not about well, this is not just you taking the child and then bringing the child to the world into the world and putting the child in a system that is already in existence for a long time and we don't question.
Mm.
So there were this question that were already appearing in our minds. That is, what is really education at the point of time? So
Right.
while our daughter was going to the kindergarten and all these things were happening, we already sort of like we already got into the conversation of education. And you know, Jega was in training at that point of time too. So we always have this high level discussions. I will say, you know, what is education, you know, what is all this, and then we go into philosophies and we go into all these things. So then we started to ask questions to get the answers. So we said, well, then is this the only way through, that is to put them in the school? And the bigger yes came from that fact that no, it's not the only option, you know. So if you were to say, ask us what was that one decision, no, but it was a cumulative decision that, sorry, cumulative thing that made us to come to arrive to that decision, you know, that we're going to homeschool.
Yeah. So the question, right, is so. I know there were many choices you had to make. I can hear that you did. You all explored the question. You explored with
Right.
people and all of that, right?
Right.
But if you had put your kid, you know how we think about what drives us, right? We are
Mhm.
either drawn to a goal, a vision of what we see of our children,
Mhm.
or we are drawn away from, I don't want my kid to end up like that,
Hmm.
right? So we're
Yeah.
talking about the normal system and a system that
Yeah.
you were going to create for the kids.
Yeah.
So you did that. So what I'm trying to understand is that, were you looking, did you see that with an alternative education system that you were going to explore? Did you see the vision of where your child could be? Or you decided, I'm going to try this, I'm going to explore this because I know if I don't do this, my child might end up there.
It was
Which one?
both. It
It
was
was
both.
both. So tell
It
us
was,
what you were averse to as what you didn't want your kid to be and what you think they could be when,
well,
if
we didn't want the system of doing or making test as the only way to show that a child is intelligent or not.
why? Why? Tell us why.
Because, well, because we know that the society needs a diversity in talents, right? The society needs a diversity in talents. But if we were to just put them through this education, that is your, you know, core subjects, your science subjects, and all and the maths and everything, well, it's good. Of course, you need some level of this knowledge of all these subjects that you need. But at the same time, we did not see that um, uh, there was a system that explored the creativity part in the children.
Mm.
Music is not about the recorder. Music is not about the symbols. Music is more than that.
Okay.
So when we tell the child, okay, you go to the school, okay, you study this, you study this. When is your exam coming? Okay, you have to sit for this, right? Okay, make sure that you study properly and everything. Okay, fine, that's fine. But at the same time, and the other part is before I come to the explanation, the teachers are also pushed to finish up their syllabus. But the question is, while they are rushing to finish the syllabus, are they really seeing what is behind the syllabus? What was the real intention of the syllabus first?
Nice,
So
nice.
that was not happening, right? So these things were going on, and the children who are put in the school, they are told to, well, if you want to get good grades, you have to study harder for this. And the only yardstick that we had was the test. And the test that we are doing, I'm not sure if you have heard about authentic assessment. You may have, you know
Yeah.
that.
Tell
So
me, tell
authentic
me.
assessment is not about your grades, your what you get in your subjects. It's more of, if you put a child, if you put children together and tell them, you give them a project to do, you will see how do they work in a team. You see how do they come up with their result, the project. You see how do they find a balance. That means they themselves find who's going to take up this one, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. They work. That is real assessment, because in the real world we are not going to bring our algebra to be to be used in an everyday situation, right? Unless you are in a job that requires that.
So,
Yeah.
what you seem to be telling me is that I think what I'm getting from you is that you started questioning whether the school system that we were putting our kids
Mm-hmm.
actually stays true to the intention of education in the first place,
That's right.
right? And because,
Yeah.
yeah, because the system, you felt that it wasn't meeting that actual intent, because the whole idea of education and what education has become is two different things, right? Because
Yeah.
one of those things I did when I was also ambitious about my kids is that I actually put together the primary school syllabus together. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized, because I was teaching kids how to make short notes, because my eldest daughter had a learning difficulty. So she learned how to read very late in her life. But I
Right.
knew that she understood, but I couldn't get the teachers to acknowledge that she understood. So what I did is that I learned how to draw, right? And
Okay.
my daughter could draw. And so what I got her to do is that we'll talk about the content of the what she was learning, and because she couldn't read or write at that moment, I'll get her to draw and talk me through it, right? Um,
Nice.
because then I know that she knows, she understood it, right? And so I was doing that, and I was doing that for slow learners who are termed as slow learners, right? Because one of those things that I learned when I went for a conference is that when we talk about slow learners, it's not that they are not learning, but they're not expressing in the way the system needs them to express. So they needed alternative expression, is what I took back, and I of course tested on my daughter, right? And when I did that, and I actually looked at the primary school syllabus, I realized it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant in terms of continuation, digging deep from year to year, but that wasn't happening in school, because all that was happening in school was download of information, and no
Right.
blame to the teachers, because there's just so much to do within a short time for all the reasons that we told you, right?
Okay.
Now, and what you're talking to us through is really, you were asking as a parent a very important question, whether really does the system really display what maybe my child came into the world with, right? Our children come with gifts, and you seem to be exploring life skills and their gifts, right? But I want to go back to one question. Ishka is asking a very important question, but before that, I want to just check in with you, right? And I'm very biased in this question. I like acknowledge it. One of the aversion I have is that the most educated parents that I talk to, right, who are able to tell me, I know the assessment is stressful for my child, but yet I see a lot of us falling into the trap of tuition to get the marks,
Sorry.
right?
Two.
trap of tuition, sending our children for tuitions
Oh,
after tuition after tuition. Now, I'm not against tuition because I know sometimes you put the child through the school system, the child cannot cope, you get additional help, right? But again, even in the tuition system, what I am seeing is a repeat of what is happening in school in a maybe better way, better ways of remembering, better ways of knowing, better way of passing, and better way of getting higher marks. But that also does not meet the intent of understanding what they are really learning at school. And that's my aversion towards tuition. So tell me, give us a bit more into education and unschooling, because I think parents who are listening in, we want to live ourselves with something to think about so that we are clear about leading our children.
okay. Well, what you said about, you see, you mentioned, sorry,
No.
are we okay? Yeah, you mentioned about the lack of creativity. I think that's what you meant. The lack of creativity comes from both sides. As I said, teachers are pushed to finish up the syllabus,
Mm,
but actually, teachers are also very creative. If you were to just leave them alone, they can come up with beautiful things.
yeah.
Because teachers, I'm talking about the teachers that we we had. I think they had all sort of things. Although they were strict, but they had so much of ways to go and attend to that different particular needs of the child or the student or the learner. And on the other side, not all learners. This is a famous term that we use in the home education community. Every child is put in the same mold.
Mm,
But they're not, because they have their own different tendencies, they have their own capacities and capabilities and all sort of things. Even if right now we have so many terms that they call children have this difficulty, that difficulty in learning. But if you really find, they have a certain ability that not all can do,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Even you have this wonderful tendency to go and look into all of this, and that's why I think you have all these amazing speakers that you had earlier on. So that it's in how we can go and find out what is the speciality in each and every one of the child,
Yeah, but
and tap tap
sorry,
on
Vani.
it.
See, what you say is ideal. It's every parent's aspiration, right?
Mhm.
I'm just saying that, but I think the real challenge for parents who are considering, right? So I've just taken, my younger kids out of the school system now, but I'm not homeschooling them or I'm educating them, right? But I've taken them out of the system. And we realized quite a number of children got out of the school system with our kids as well. We have an alternative, right? So it's really interesting that it's happening. But I find that I'm very blessed because I have a lot of help. I have a lot of resources. But
Yep.
and I've taken my own time to say, and even I was thinking, are we sure we can hack this, right? So I think when parents are struggling between making a living to providing for the children, and usually parents, right, if you look at their finances, the top goes for education and medical of kids, right? Now, and so that means I got to be at work more, right? So, and I need to my children to be in a system because I can't look after them, right? So on one hand, it's that, which means if my child falls into the system. On the other hand, is to take control of the system or manage that by looking for alternative education, which means you need to spend your time here. So if I put my kids here and I may put my kids here and have a different way of bringing my child up by saying, I don't expect you to be part of the system. The system is just helping you to get where you need to go, sort of a thing. As a parent, how do we balance being part of the system and not being pressured as a
Okay.
parent,
Now,
right? And doing what
I
is right for the child.
sorry. Yeah, I would like to actually also say here that, well, generally it's called homeschooling.
Hmm.
But within the community, there are parents who say they homeschool the kids and they send them to the centers that homeschool. But that's not homeschooling. In fact, even during MCO, a lot of parents say they are homeschooling the kids. They were not doing that. They were just bringing the system into the house, and they were doing online studies with their teachers in the school. And then we have the unschooling lot. We also have, well, you can call many terms. So here what we're saying is if you see, if you can go and find out the intelligence of a child, in if let's say the child is showing more curiosity in the science and the and those kind of, it takes a little toy and starts opening up, and then it likes to do, the electrical this thing, and it can really gel very well those kind of topics without you even teaching. Then you know that this child probably will, unless the parents are capable to teach them full time in those subjects, you see. So they can be put under a certain teacher who can do tutoring in certain subjects, whereas the other subjects can be, I do not know, maybe the parents are still doing it, or because homeschooling, what we did, homeschooling in our home education that we did was fully us. We did not outsource it to anyone. And all of us moms and dads that we have in our community, we did cooperative learning. If someone is good in a certain subject, they will teach. The other person is not to say subject, it's like subject in the school, but as simple as someone who can do cross stitch. So that person will teach. If the children are wanting to go and learn, they will learn. And at that point of time, we do not have to force give
Yeah.
them anything, because they are all full and ready like a sponge, receiving that water to be absorbed full. You see, so that is one of the thing. If I get your question right, we do not have to be in the system fully too. We don't have to be out of the system fully too, because we have to really see. Home education comes from a different as well. A lot of misconceptions are there about home education. So this is one of it. So what if the kids want to do certain subject? They want to become a astrophysicist. Then you send them to the rightful teachers. Let
So
them
what
do the
I'm
subjects.
hearing, right, Vani? So what? Let me know whether I've listened to you well, right?
Mhm.
Because I have so many more questions for you. Okay. So one is what I'm hearing from you is, as parents first observe, we need to observe our children to know what
Yeah.
is the natural tendency, natural interest, natural inclination, because that will show up in terms of their interest. Because then, when we understand what is our children's natural tendencies, which usually turns out to be their talent in the way they are thinking, then when they are exposed to the education, the information they require, they become more engaged, and it's learner centric, and they drive their own learning, is what I'm hearing. What I'm also hearing from you is that, you know don't be caught up in a label, but be clear about the intention for your child,
Yeah.
right? So I think as parents, we need to be clear why we are doing what we're doing, and not blindly fall into a system, and figure out a balance and a life that works for your condition, because your conditions are your conditions. And what I'm also hearing from you is that you have beautifully created a community. And I've always believed it takes a village to raise a child, more and more, right? And you seem to have your own villages who are good at what they do. And so when you know it's beyond you, there's enough good, trusted help to guide your child to drive his or her own learning, is what I'm hearing. Did I hear you well, or did I miss out anything?
Yes, you have. So before you go and find out what the child wants or what is the natural tendencies, we need to give them the environment for them to go and explore.
Nice.
So we cannot say that, oh, because we come from a family of this, so you have to do this. That's
Right.
not for us. One of the biggest gift that we get as parents is we don't have to undo the children's thinking so much as compared to when they go to school. There's a lot of perceptions that is being put is being
Nice.
put.
Nice,
Whereas here, we let them explore, we let them go and homeschooling or home education by the parents or the caretakers, you have the real intention in your heart,
nice, nice,
and you
nice,
have love and compassion to back them up. So
nice.
you give them, yeah, you give them the environment. If the child says, if it's a boy and the boy says, I want to dance, go ahead. What dance he wants to do, go ahead. You do not know, that could be the next Ramli Ibrahim. And I believe I just saw my teacher commenting. Thank you so much, teacher. My teacher Geeta Shankaran Lam has got beautiful children. Both the kids were sons. They are beautiful dancers, including the daughter too. So when you give them the natural tendencies, right? When you give them the environment for them to grow, when you support them in that way, they will naturally pick up that, and you
Got
will find that their talents will just grow.
Nice, nice, nice. In fact, my greatest takeaway in what you're saying just now was a golden nugget for me is that recently I looked at a picture, right, that showed a flower that was not blossoming. And they said, don't work on the flower, work on the environment, the soil around it. And that's exactly what you're saying. Because I think one of the biggest nuggets that you're giving me with my children right now is that if I'm not happy how my child is showing up, right? I aware of what is the environment that is actually supporting who they've become now, and how can I do that? And that's what you're saying. With the
Yeah.
home environment, you have less of that unschooling to do. Okay, I'm going to take a quick pause because there's been such good comments, and I'm going to just share that with you, and a question from Ishka, which I'm going to deal with. So Geeta Shankaran Lam has got a long one, and she says, Go Vani, I heard about homeschooling in 95 96, and I was curious. Strangely, I always intuitively felt homeschooling begins when a parent guides a child seeking knowledge in every way. What I knew and did it for my kids, it was more calmer and positive. A child learns happier minus competition. I like that, Geeta. Happier and not being competitive, right? Because that's the trap we parents fall into as well, competing. As usual, this cannot be sustained if parents need to focus on career. Tak jadilah, correct as well. But I think that's where Wani has also given us go with what works for you for your life, right? The pressure from people around us, feeling afraid, not following the norm. And I think this is saying that kids cope and do well. Gerald says, how parents need to play an important role. Gerald, not cutting short, but I want to get to questions. Pal has come here and to say the concept of mass customization is possible now in education with advancement in infotech. However, the stumbling blocks are, is it really available to all, awareness of it, and teachers willing to explore it and take the path less travel or go back to what's convenient. I think I'm just going to leave that as that. There's a lot of questions that we need to answer, and I think, but for me, that's why this conversation with Vani is very important because as parents, we are now asking whether we want to follow a system or are we resourceful enough to find our own resources to support our children better than to give in to the system is, I think, the conversation that we are having. Hi, Chris. Chris has come in. I want to deal with Ishka's question, which I think is a question that most of us would have when we say we are taking our child from a system or putting a child into the system, right? She says, Hi, Malar. Hi, sis. That's Vani. Is there a balance for your child? Do they miss play and social integration and extracurricular activity? This is
Okay.
probably a FAQ for you, right, Vani? Yeah, tell us.
Okay, Mother, you want me to answer that question?
First,
By okay. Thanks for the comments and the questions. Right. Well, in our case, our kids did not miss out on any of those social integration because when we did this education at home, one of the things that we get to do always is we take them everywhere we go. So whether you like the relatives or not, they were still children at that time. So wherever, whichever functions that we go, we just take them. So you will just go and talk to everyone. So you have your communication going on from the elder people up to the youngest one. You may not be seeing your same peers. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you're not actually just limiting yourself to. I mean, I'm talking on behalf of the kids, and also the kids that I've seen. The communication that they have with the people is of all sorts. So they don't necessarily just come from the school and the pupils in your class or the teachers or the discipline teacher or the headmaster. They have a whole lot of the community, and wherever they stay, they go, and we let them out to play. We let them call their neighbors to come and play in a safe environment. And well, they also had extracurricular activities. That is, they have been in okay, at least in our kids situation, we had sent them to all sorts of classes like music and dance and instrumental classes and character building classes. So they had school going kids in those places. So can you see that they come from this part of the world, and they also see that part of the world, and they also have their home education or homeschooling community that they go and meet every time. But the beautiful part was that these kids who were educated at home, they got to climb trees when school children were at school. They got to be at the beach when no one was there.
Right.
They will go and explore in their own time. They will take the shell, and then they see, hey, what is this? And they will go and see if there is a living being. Let's go and put it in the water and things like that. They were doing all sorts of things. We used to go to libraries, we used to go to museum, we used to go to all of these places, and they
Mm.
will play the games, the traditional games that were forgotten. So well, not to be biased, but what I saw was that these kids were having a hell of a time or a
And
heaven of
I
time.
think you need to change it to heaven of a time than hell of a
Heaven
time.
of a time.
Yeah, heaven of a time. So what I'm hearing from you, Vani, over and over again, right, between you and Jaga, and I think Perthpal for sure confirms that, Vani and Habi are outliers. Yeah, that's a known fact. They're brave. They bravely took the difficult part, at least in my eyes. I well, I'm not. I'm sure. I think any part of parenting when we are committed is difficult, right? And I think what you are saying is that you're very, both you and Jika are very conscious. You stay true to the spirit of parenting, which is to be conscious, to help the child realize himself or herself, right? And your connection with the world in the various way life has already given us, but the school has a system. But what you've done because of your conscious parenting, you've
Mhm.
made sure our kids don't miss out on the necessary connection. So on one hand, you're giving them a free hand, a free life to learn by putting them in that environment. On the other hand, you're also very conscious that there are some things that which is very important for us living beings, which is connection and connection with nature and relationship, and as you say, tolerance and obedience, a whole lot of things. But you put them in an environment where there's no need for resistance, there's no need for me to feel like I am in a system and I need to rebel against it or reject against it. So I think that's what I see. I'm going to just say, read out what Jeremy has said before we go on to maybe last few questions. I believe the system is good. It's basic. What we can do is add values, supplement, enhance it. However, one shoe doesn't fit all. We need to provide the environment and exposure to children. If they like something, they run and go with it. If they don't like, eliminate it. What's important is we build some core areas such as communication, resilience, respect. Oh my God, love, positivity, and going back to basics. Just my 2 cents. It was more than 2 cents, Gerald, and no one formula works. What works is what that we do, I think, because it's kind of so. Gerald's statement is provoking me to ask another question, right? Because he says, right, one shoe doesn't fit all. We need to provide exposure, right? So how do you and Jiga, right, how do you balance? Because there is this part where we want to make it comfortable, positive, and whatever for we want a nurturing environment. But the struggle is how do I balance nurture and growth mindset? Because sometimes nurturing can mean that you put our children in such comfortable zones that they don't become resilient, right? So how do you balance the two?
Okay. What would you mean by growth mindset? As in, like,
Ah,
what would
in
you?
Sure. Thank you. So you see, sometimes when we just leave them be, they're gonna grow in their own way. But sometimes, like one example that you gave, for example, is the one that when they go to relatives' house, they have to figure out how to connect and all of that. But we need a lot more young children or even parents, right? Who say my kids don't want to come with me, because they're uncomfortable and they are introverts, so we don't want them to mix around. So we tend to take a very strong tendency to make the child comfortable, which then
Mhm.
impacts their growth and resilience. Of course, with conscious parenting, you are interjecting and saying, okay, these areas you can be comfortable, these are skills that you require as a human, and just get uncomfortable and grow. Like, not all discomforts leads to growth, but growth
Okay.
is uncomfortable.
Okay. Right. If I get this right, let me know if I'm not answering the question. Now, I think basically you just let them make the mistakes if they have to. Don't bail them out in any kind of situations unless it's really required. So that itself is a path for them to grow. I mean, after all, when they are in the world, when they are in the real world, and in the future world, we might not be having the problems that the future is going to hold today.
Nice.
Just like the professions that we thought will not make money is making a lot of money today. Gamers, right? So when we used to draw last time, we were told don't waste your time,
Mm,
don't color.
mm,
Those kind of things still happens nowadays. But we were very very particular about these things because we thought that this is where they really grow. If I'm getting this right, Malar, the growth mindset grows when you just let them be. In fact, one of the things that I learned through unschooling is unschooling. We did unschooling first, and then our daughter decided that she wanted to do her degree. So we said, okay, we have 1.5 years to do IGCSE. Let's prepare now. So that was. I would not advise this to all parents, but we did that. We did that because if you want to put your kids through IGCSE and if they want to, let them. If they don't want to sit for IGCSE, they don't want to do SPM or so, let them because there are kids. In fact, there was just about a few days ago, one of our friends, the two boys, they are very good in their animation. They have their own YouTube, and their subscriptions and subscribers are so many. They were just offered scholarships by one of the universities, private universities, to do their studies.
mm.
So it's just like that. You don't even have to show your qualifications. So what we are really seeing in the future may not be now. We might
What
not be
we
having
see now, yeah, may not exist in the future. We might be preparing our kids for a future that may not exist, is what you're saying.
exactly. So that growth for them to meet that world will happen when you just let them be. Sometimes they might not be doing anything, but for you, they are not doing anything. But for them, they are going through a lot of things in their mind. How they're going to find a solutions for their own problems. You see,
Nice.
so it's not for us to go and be there all the time because we are not going to be. No
Okay.
parents are going to be.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and you can choose not to answer this if it's not safe for the family. I'm just asking because you brought this up, right? Like what I told you. So because I know the kids are involved, is it possible for you to share an example where it was difficult for you to see your child learn on his or her own? That means what is considered maybe a mistake. like they need to explore. And as an adult, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I know what they're going to go through, right? Is it possible for you to share an example of where you've allowed them to make their own choice? And because you allowed them, and I'm sure during the time it must have been challenging for you, because you've allowed them, you saw how they grew. Is it possible to share an example?
Because I allowed them, we
You
saw.
just allow them to make their choices and learn.
Okay, but necessarily, do you want them to? Do you want an example where they did a mistake, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
What was a mistake? Because I think if it turned out well, then it's a good thing for both of us, right? The child turns around and say, "Mommy, I told you so," and like, I can let go. I mean, though you will have a lot of those moments, right? But I think for me personally, I think what we need to find courage as parents is to know that those mistakes where they so-called fail in the word we use, right, is actually absolutely necessary for them to grow, and our growth as parents is to let it go. Right?
Yeah.
Is there an example that
Okay.
you
One of the things that I can really remember is, are we okay? Is it
yeah, yeah,
lagging?
yeah.
Okay.
No, good.
So yeah. So well, one of the things was, maybe I can tell you about the reason ICSC that my daughter took. So we were thinking, well, maths will be good, not add maths, just your core maths. They have a subject called core maths, and they have extended paper. So she said, okay, fine, we'll take it. I'll do it. And because she said she will do it, and we said, okay, go ahead and do. And ICSC comes with a prize too. I'm sure you all know that, each and every paper that you do, and if you have a tuition teacher for that, you will pay a little bit of money. It's a little bit heavy on the pocket. So she did. She went ahead. But then what we came to know, she was not keen to take it, but she did not really tell us. She just said, okay, Naman, I'll just do it. But because we respected the choice, we said, go ahead. And when she did not get a very satisfactory result that she wanted, we said, it's okay, it's fine. It is a mistake that both of us, I think, as parents and because you said you wanted to do it, we also said, okay, just go ahead. And we got a tuition teacher for to address the subject. We thought that she might be just be happy with the result, but then she was not. And what happened was, she actually did twice. I mean, she did part and part. So she did ICSE in May, and also in uh, end of the year. So what she did the second round was, she said, no, I want to take up languages. You
Mm-hmm.
see, because languages is something that she really likes. And she did her Spanish learning and French on her own, without any teachers or without any tuition or whatsoever, except for Spanish, because for Spanish oral exam, she needed someone to converse with her. And she had a friend who helped her, a nice friend who was her age, to help with French speaking. So, except for this, everything else she learned within a few months, Spanish and French, and she got distinctions for those subjects.
Nice,
But
nice.
you see, she went through that period of making the mistake, but she made sure. We did not push her, though. We did not push her. We said, you do your best,
Mm,
because we know we are not parents who are asking for A's, and we
right.
know the test is just a snapshot of something. It's not. It's just a frame. It's nothing else. It's not going to determine whether you are intelligent, whether you're going to do this in your future. Your exams are just exams. Once you're done, that's it. You just go ahead, and you have more assessments to come, more authentic assessments to come, right? So when she made that mistake of probably choosing the subject, and she did what she liked to do in the next one, she knew how she had to work, and she didn't want to make us pay money for her sociologies, sorry, for her language subjects. So she knew exactly what she had to do, how much of time she has to take up to learn and everything, and she did it very well. So maybe that's one of the
No, I think
mistakes.
Yes, in fact, I'm not even sure whether personally for me, I didn't see it as a mistake. I felt that that's an you see, sometimes we're not so sure. We think we like, I mean, especially forget about young people. Even now, when I ask for opinions from people, you're not sure which is you and which is the noise from the outside. And sometimes you have to experience it to distinguish your own voice and the noise from outside. And for me, the
Yeah,
example you're giving me is your child has learned how to discern, to listen within, to say what is right for me, so that
right.
I don't get carried away. Will I call it a mistake? Not at all. But I think what seems like a mistake because of the failure of not having achieved my goal is hurtful enough. But I think what your daughter seemed to be able to do is discern, think, and draw learning from that experience to make a better choice the next round is what I am seeing. And in both ways, I think that's such amazing quality to have for life skills. So Vani, you've just demonstrated all the things that you all have done has actually given your
Yep.
child such amazing maturity with life skills to think, to make decisions, to make choices, to
Mm.
actually take accountability for the choices that she makes. Like when you say, she saw us paying through our nose, for example, and how she on her own decided, what, I'm not going to make them do this, I'm going to find a different way. And she has become so resourceful. I think we can decode just that one story to see the power of unschooling and home educating and be the parents who create that environment for your child to prosper and be the best version of themselves, while knowing that if you ever fall, because that's part of life, that we are there to just hold
Yeah.
you, right? And that's what you've demonstrated with us. It's 105. Before we end, I'm going to ask you a couple of very straight questions, so you need to answer it straight. Are you ready?
Okay, sure, fine.
Yeah. Well, I usually say it is what, rapid fire, but it's not going to be rapid fire. Tell us uh, one thing that when you look at your children being home educated, one thing that you look at them and you say, you and Jega say, yeah, this is why I know we made the right choice.
Well, the freedom to choose what they want to pursue.
Nice. Tell me one criticism that you received from people around that was bothering you, right? When you
Okay.
first started off, and now you can look at them and say, remember what you told me. Of course, you don't do that, but what is that one criticism that was so noisy in your head that made your choice and decision a bit challenging?
They are not doing what the other school children are doing.
Nice, nice. And the best advice you received about the choice to home educate your child?
Well, I would not say advice because I think in our community they are all. I can't mention the names because there's just too many of them, too many of them. And just before I come to that answer, I'll just a quick one. We had a gathering about 1 month ago. All of those kids who came, all were teenagers. Some were younger than 10 years old. None of them were on device. They were all
Oh,
happy singing. They were all happily singing songs from the 80s and 70s.
nice.
So that also brings smiles to us. Okay, so coming back to the question, I've not received advice, I think, because we are all a growing community. We are all always unlearning and learning as a community. But I hold on to the quote by Swami Vivekananda that is very dear to me because that quote is something that resonates with me, which is education is the manifestation of perfection already existing in man.
Nice.
So that is a real core value that we have too. Even before coming to that quote, we already had this in our thoughts. We said, "Hey, no, everyone is special." So yeah,
We are enough and perfect the way we are, right? And
yeah,
education
yeah.
is a manifestation. I would say an amen to that. Last question before we say goodbye to you. What is the best gift that you feel you have as a family unit, as a community, because you've given a lot of stuff there, right? If there's one word to say, you know what, homeschooling has given us this as a unit, as a tribe, whether it's a family tribe, of a community tribe, of an education tribe, whatever you want to call your tribe, what would be that one gift that you think you all have got, which is precious as a result of home education?
Well, without us knowing that they were being assessed, they were showing that they are already into the assessment. That is, they were showing us the cooperation with the students. I mean, with their own peers, they were showing their how they are not bothered about competitions. They are not bothered
Nice,
about all those feelings of jealousy and all those. They were always celebrating everyone's good and bad. No,
nice,
not bad. They were celebrating the good. They were always encouraging when the others were not too good, and that sort of like goes across to all the other community that come into contact with too, you
nice.
know. Yeah.
That
And
sounds like authenticity to me at its best.
yes, and also the fact that when I told you just now, this was Jega's take. He said that we don't have to undo a lot of things that they've learned because we did not give them those judgments or perceptions from us.
Nice.
Right.
Thank you, Vani. Thank you very much. I know, you're right. I bring great speakers, and it's wonderful to actually have you as our speaker in
Thank you.
Series 55. And remember, because we only bring in great speakers, you've been great, and you've given. I don't know about the rest of the people, but I take back a lot from my children, for my my own tribe that I aspire. So thank you very much for giving us your time and being so real about answering every question. So, thanks to Jega. To Jega, thank you very much. I know you are somewhere there, but you're a unit. But you know what? This time, all stars goes to Vani. So, Vani, thank you very much. I will say keep inspiring us in all the work that you do. We didn't get to talk about your parenting workshop, but for those who have questions, I'm sure Vani is tagged here in Facebook and LinkedIn, and connect with her, connect with her community, take whatever we can to build the life that we want for ourselves and for our loved ones. So thank you, Wani. God bless you and stay well, and happy Mother's Day and happy Teachers Day to
Thank you
you.
so much. Happy Teachers Day. Happy Mother's Day to every one of you. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. All right, so that was Vani Sri. I told you why I envy her, and that envy has shifted into admiration and a lot more things for me to learn. So with that, thank you for joining us. I didn't get to read all the comments because I needed to draw these things nuggets out of Vani Sri. So for all those who've joined us and commented, Gerald, Patel, Perpal, Chris. Let me see, Geeta and Ishka. Thank you for your question, Sarjit. And I hope, John Peter, if you're still there, Munez, thank you for joining us. And next week, we will be joined by another guest. And same time, same place, different sari. See you next week. Till then, stay safe. Bye.